Hey everybody, it's me. I'm back. It has been an absolutely long time, too long, but I am here with a banger of a video for you. So before we even get started, get yourself a snack, get yourself something to drink, because today I am doing my first long video based on a lot of you asking me this specific question. And that question is, how do I start a career in compliance? I have previously done a video where I shared some tips. I think it was one of the first few videos I did when I started this channel. You'll be able to tell by how nervous I was and stiff I was in that video, but hey, we grow, we learn. But in that video, I shared a few tips with you guys. And since then, I still get questions. Can you share some more information? I need more detail. So today, you are getting what you ask for. Detail galore, load it up. Like I said, get some snacks, get a drink. You might have to pause and come back because I am going in and I am going in depth. And I'm going to actually share a slide presentation with you just to give it a bit more visuals as well. So as I say that to you, let me quickly share my screen so that you can see that. And then we're going to jump straight into this fabulous subject matter, or that you guys are so curious to learn a lot more about. If you are new to the channel, Compliance with Kudzai, welcome. So glad to have you here. Please be sure to subscribe, like this video, like future videos, share it with a friend who you know has got an interest in compliance. I really do appreciate the support. But without further ado, I think we should get into the subject so that I can answer all the questions that you have on how to start a career in compliance. And if you do have any questions post this, pop them into the comment section. I will be happy to answer them and help you along if I have the answer, or at least point you in the right direction, right? Okay, let's jump straight in. So, being a compliance officer is really a fantastic career choice. And people, like I said, often come to me and are like, Kudzai, how can I start a career in compliance? So what I want to do today is spend a little time sharing with you just how you can do that, things that you can do, things that you can think about, and hopefully it helps you, start to climb that ladder and, engage and becoming very competent in the field of compliance risk management. But before I jump into the nitty-gritty of it all, I just have a key point that I think is important to make for anybody wanting to have a career in compliance or anything else for that matter. So sometimes people have an expectation that I start here, I'll end there, and careers just don't work that way. It never is a straight line in any way, shape, or form. My career path was one way, your career path is a different way, but at the end of the day, whatever our individual journeys look like, we can all get to the goal if we just keep at it. So don't look at my path and say, I must follow the exact same steps, or anyone else's path and say that you must follow the exact same steps. Your route to getting to compliance might look different, but you will get there. Okay. Some compliance officers, have such, in fact, all compliance officers potentially have such diverse backgrounds, right? There's this misconception that you have to have a law qualification. You have to be a lawyer to be in compliance. And that is absolutely false. I've been in rooms and met and worked with brilliant compliance officers who, yes, have legal backgrounds, or some who have finance backgrounds, some who have operations backgrounds, sales, whatever the case may be. The key thing that they all had was a passion to learn and understand what is risk management itself at the core of it. What are the regulatory obligations that apply within my industry? And then how am I going to, apply my background, knowledge, and skill set and layer it with the compliance risk management skill set, and then off I go. And then they all became fantastic and successful compliance officers. So there is no necessity to have a specific background. You too, whatever your qualification is, you can have an amazing career in compliance. Okay, but Let's move on. Let's move on. I think we've got a lot to cover today. And the first thing that I want us to look at is, what is the role of a compliance officer in the first place? Let's make sure that we're all on the same page when we're talking about the role of a compliance officer. So a compliance officer is responsible for advising the business on the various laws and regulations that apply to it, based on the activities that it does, the products and services that it offers, the type of clients that it deals with. Our role is to then understand what those regulatory requirements are and then advise the business on what they need to do to ensure that they're operating within the framework of the laws and regulations, and what controls they can put in place to better manage those risks and ensure that you're not accidentally not complying with things that you need to be complying with. So there's a whole suite of tools in terms of our compliance program that we put in place to assist the business in that regard, as well as our advisory role that we play. If you want to learn a lot more about roles and responsibilities, you should check out my video that I did on that goes a lot more in depth into advisory services and into implementation of a compliance program. But that's what we do. And the interesting thing is, and sometimes there's a bit of a misunderstanding, that, compliance officers are financial services. There are so many industries that need compliance officers. Yes, financial services. So your banks, your insurance companies, your pension funds, they definitely need compliance officers and are probably up there in terms of one of the most regulated industries, i.e. the financial sector. But then also healthcare sector, pharmaceuticals, mining, telecommunications, NGOs, oil and gas sector, all of those areas and sectors have got laws and regulations that apply to them. And therefore, they need compliance officers who are going to guide them through that process of achieving compliance, whether it's environmental issues or, fast-moving consumer goods, whatever it is, all those sectors do need compliance officers. So as you're thinking about how do I get into compliance, don't just think financial services, I need to be in a bank. Like I said, there's a variety of industries that need compliance officers. And then even within those, there are different disciplines that you can potentially consider within the compliance space. But essentially your role, whatever sector and industry you find yourself in, is to go into it, understand what the laws and regulations are and issues and risk matters that affect the industry are, and then go and support your business to making sure that those risks are being managed. So that's your job as a compliance program, right? Advise your business, implement a strong compliance program that is relevant to the context in which it operates. Fabulous. So now we are all on the same page in terms of, so what is it that a compliance officer does? What's their role? So how do I get in there, Kudzai? It sounds really great. That's exactly what I want to do with myself. So I'm going to take you through 5 key things that you should do to kickstart your career in compliance. And I'm also, before the end of this video, going to share with you 10 key technical skills that you need to master to be competent and effective in the field of compliance. Yes, 10. So 5 tips and 5 pieces of advice in terms of how you can get a career in compliance. And then we're going to talk skills. What are the skills that you need to focus on? So like I said, we are going in depth today. So buckle up. So first things first. What's the first thing, Kudzai? So the first thing is research. And yes, you're like, okay, so she's going to make us do homework, but stay with me. I'm going to explain why you need to do research. First of all, you need to understand the following to give you focus and make sure that you aren't just kind of moving blindly through the world, doing everything under the sun that is not really targeted. So I mentioned that there's lots of industries that, need compliance professional. Which industry are you interested in? Do you want to be in the mining space? Do you want to be in the banking space, telecommunications, fast-moving consumer goods, whatever it is? Figure out where your area of interest lies. I suggest you do some research. What are the issues that, you know, are faced in the energy sector from a regulatory perspective, FMCG sector? See what, you know, interests you and starts getting your brain flowing and kicking. And then now you've narrowed it down that this is the section or industry that I am interested in pursuing. And then understand if there's qualifying criteria for working within compliance within that industry. I'll give you an example. In South Africa, we have the Financial Advisory and Intermediary Services Act, and that looks at, you know, you're providing financial products or financial advice. And if you are supporting a business that does that as a compliance professional, they expect you to have done certain examinations, they call them regulatory exams, for the different categories of financial services provider. So if, for example, you are in a company that deals with cryptocurrency, and in South Africa that's really recently been designated as a financial product, you know, if that's a regulated business in your location where you work, insurance industry, whatever the case may be, are there prerequisites in terms of exams, qualifications for that specific discipline or area of coverage that you would need to then consider? So first look at the industry level, and then once you've established what your industry interest is in, for a compliance officer specifically in that industry, understand if there are specific exams, certifications that you might need to obtain in order to be employable within that space. And once you've figured that out, now you can start researching what are the laws that actually apply to the space. Like I said, banking, maybe it's the Banks Act and all of that thing. And then you've got your bigger ones like your anti-bribery and corruptions that apply regardless of the industry that you're in. But exactly what is the suite of laws and regulations, the ones that enable you to operate, you know, your core laws and regulations, Pension Fund Act, Insurance Act, you know, if there's things in the mining space that you need to comply with, you know, to be able to extract minerals from the ground, if that's your area of interest, what are the specific laws in your country of operation that apply to that sector? Create a list of those laws, do your research, and start to familiarize. And by familiarize, I am in no way saying that you need to read it from cover to cover, word for word, but just kind of get to grips, you know, what is this law about? What is it intending? What's its objectives? What is the protections that it's trying to put in place? You know, is it environmental issues? Is it consumer issues? Is it customer issues? You know, whatever the case is, get to grips with the laws and regulations that you need to have an understanding of. And then once you get through that, you've done some research and you're now able to say, okay, so let me narrow it down even further. Think of it as a funnel, right? Industry level, are there any qualifications and certifications that I need to qualify to qualify as a compliance officer in that space? And then, you know, what are the laws and regulations that apply in there? And then now, as a compliance officer, if there's a specific area or specialization that you want to do. So for example, I'm interested in monitoring and testing. What are the skills that I need to be able to have to be able to be a monitoring and testing officer in the compliance space? If I want to be a sanctions compliance officer, what do I specifically need to be knowing about sanctions in order to advise in that space? If I want to be a data protection officer and do, you know, focus on data protection and cybersecurity, what are the things that I need to do? What are the skills that I need to have? And again, is there an additional certification? So even within the compliance space, do I want to specialize or do I want to be a generalist? And I'm going to do a video about specialization versus being a generalist soon so that I can explain that in a lot more detail for you. But yeah, you just have to get a feel of what is it that you want to do, specialist or kind of be jack of all trades, for to lack of a better term, in terms of defining a generalist. Once you've got those answers, you now have a clear direction in terms of what you are pursuing, industry-wise, study-wise, certification-wise. Even when you're applying for jobs, you'll be able to see that this job description is aligned with where I want my career to be versus applying for anything that has the word compliance in it. So research before you begin the journey of job applications and all of that is very, very important. Okay, that was step number 2. So what are you going to do for step number 3? Start to upskill and learn. It is so important. Some people kind of say, I'll get the job and figure it out when I'm there. And I think sometimes that's because you truly underestimate just how technical the knowledge is that you need to have. And I'm going to explain that to you later on in the video when I talk about those 10 technical skills that you need to be in compliance. But you know, none of us were born with the knowledge of compliance just running and coursing through our veins, right? We all had to invest time, energy into learning, from practical to courses to whatever the case is. So you start your journey in terms of learning. Find courses and workshops that you can attend so that you can attain the skills that you need. We offer those at KC Compliance. We've got online courses, we've got workshops, but we're not the only providers in the world. You can see whichever ones might be suited for the direction that you need to go, especially, like I said, if you've done that research and it's very specific. I need a cybersecurity thing. We, for example, don't have cybersecurity courses, but I'm sure you can find a suitable provider that can assist you with that. But if you do want to do the KC compliance ones, we've got the very great foundational ones. So like your Compliance Risk Management 101 is a great foundational course. The Compliance Practices Workshop is also excellent for getting the technical know-how, as well as the Compliance Bootcamp, which is a 5-week bootcamp. There are resources like that available for you if you just want to invest and upskill and learn. So look into what is suitable for you, for your budget, for your time zone, for your jurisdiction, because I know sometimes the time zone issue can be problematic for people who are, you know, in the Northern Hemisphere and want to attend some of my workshops. So it can be challenging in that regard. But look for what works for you in your jurisdiction, within your budget, and say, actually, I just want to learn. And if you can't afford a formal course, for example, there are so many avenues like this YouTube channel. You are paying absolutely nothing to watch this video. Find resources like that. Read books, watch the news, you know, check out the regulator's website. They have lots of laws and guidance notes and all of that, and information about what their expectations are for compliance, risk management, and governance, and all of that. So read. The internet is your friend. There are solutions out there depending on what it is that you're trying to look for, but you have to invest in learning. Okay. All right, so look for some courses, look for online resources that are available to you, and get stuck in to learning what it is that you need to learn. Now, experience. This one is a tricky one because everyone says, Kutsaya, the job needs me to have experience in order to get the job. But to get the job, I have to have experience, and I don't have experience. And what comes first, chicken and the egg, all that conversation. And I get it. But there are ways to get creative about seeking out opportunities to get experience. And I know it's not easy, and sometimes it might require you to be patient and persistent, but it's possible, I promise you. So let me give you an example. If you are currently employed within an organization, any organization that has any laws that apply to it, does it have a compliance team in there? Does it have a risk team? Does it have an audit team? Does it have a company secretarial function? Go in there into those functions, either directly into the compliance team, or, you know, some of these functions that, you know, are likely to deal with, you know, compliance risk in some sort of way. Then find out, you know, how can I get plugged in? How can I get information? Is it possible for me to come and spend some time with you guys once a week for a month, speak to your manager, whatever it is, a day, a week, a day, a month, whatever arrangement you can kind of make work based on your existing role and the needs and expectations there. But figure out if you can shadow somebody and spend some time and understand, what is it that you do? How do you do monitoring and testing? How do you sit and assess a new business initiative to see if it complies with different regulatory? It might be a few hours a day, I don't know, but figure out ways to connect with people in your business if you have those functions already within them. And if you don't have the function, Fantastic. If you're in a business that has any sort of law that applies to it, then raise your hand and say, like, but we need to be complying with these laws. Can I put in place a compliance framework? Can I have an opportunity to try and figure out this compliance space? And there you go. You've opened a door and created a whole new function. But like I said, it's going to need you to be creative. It's going to need you to be patient, persistent, and just, try. What's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. No one ever died from hearing the word no, right? So find creative ways to get experience. If you're not employed and you're like, okay, it's easy enough for you to say that these people have got jobs, potentially they can go in and have the conversations. I'm at home. Well, if you're at home, consider volunteering, whether it's at your professional body. Those are usually like nonprofit organizations, and they could always do with an extra pair of hands. Or if it's at a consultancy company, especially these new startups where, we can't afford to hire people on a full-time basis, and be like, I'm willing to volunteer for a month, 2 months, just to get exposure and understand what it is that you do. Sometimes you have to risk a little bit to get a lot more. And what you are looking for is experience. So get creative. Those are just a couple of ideas that I have about getting experience. And of course, you might be lucky and be one of those people who apply for a job and you don't have experience, and you find a manager who's willing to jump in and give you a chance, which is always great. And that is not out of the realm of impossible. So try that as well. But either way, figure it out, maneuver, get yourself in there, even if it's just a week at a time. The objective is to learn. The objective is to connect with people in the spaces. And who knows, after you've been visiting a department for a few months and showing interest in learning, if someone happens to resign there one day, you might be top of mind for someone and be like, that lady, that gentleman was showing a lot of enthusiasm and eagerness to learn about compliance risk management. Maybe we should give them a chance. So you never know. And speaking of connecting with people, it's really, really important to build your network. And when I talk about building your network, I don't just mean, hey, how are you? Can I have a job? It's about just having conversations with people. So, for example, if you're in an organization that I said, maybe you can't take time off to shadow someone for a day, a week, or whatever the case is, a simple coffee is more than enough. Just I really want to understand what it is that you do. I'm interested in pursuing this career path. Can we have coffee? If you're still in the social distancing phase and maybe you're in a hybrid setup, then have a 30-minute video call with somebody who's in the space that you have an interest with. A lot of people are really excited and are passionate about the work that they do and would be happy to share their career journey, some tips, tell you the right things to study versus, the stuff that there's a lot of hype, but it doesn't actually add value. The people on the ground doing the work are likely to be able to point you in the right direction in terms of what you should be pursuing. So networks are really great that way. And it's not just about banging people's, head against the wall to get through the door. I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. Actually build a relationship, get to know people. And again, if an opportunity pops up and you've been engaged and asking questions and sharing your ideas and thoughts about the space, they might just think of you as well one day when they have an opportunity to fill a role in their teams, or someone reaches out to them and says, you know what, I'm looking for someone like that. This happens to me all the time. I get phone calls from people and they're like, oh, Kadzai, I'm looking to fill this role. Oh, Kadzai, I'm looking to fill that role. Do you know anybody? And if I've been engaging with you and maybe we've been chatting and you've shown a keen interest in compliance, if the role that has been shared with me is suitable, I will always recommend a person or pass it on to that person and say, maybe consider that. So, and it's all based on relationship, so don't take it for granted and just sit in your little corner, in your little box and say, well, I'm just going to pray and sit and read and hope. You need to be proactive and build your network as well. So that's step number 4, building your network. Very important. And remember, all of these things come together nicely and work together. It's not just do one. So don't just do the research and do nothing. You have to do the research. You have to network. You have to seek opportunities to gain experience. And all of those things will come together very nicely for you one day. Now, skill alignment, this one is really important because people sometimes come from outside and be like, well, I don't have any experience. If you really think about it, sometimes the experience that you've gained over the years in whatever space you've been operating in is a transferable skill. And actually, it can help you be a good monitoring officer. So, for example, a person who did audit would be a fantastic compliance monitoring person. So that those are transferable skills. So as you're looking at your CV and looking at different roles and opportunities and you've decided the direction that you want to go in, look at your CV and say, what skills do I have currently that could align nicely with what I have? What value can the experiences that I've had bring to this specific role? And then you're going to start seeing a lot more synergies and things that actually do work in your favor. And sometimes, remember, it's a fresh perspective. Maybe no, your skills are not directly in correlation with what the job spec is saying, but your existing skill set can bring a brand new perspective. So don't take that for granted. Align as much as you can and then figure out how can I highlight how the skills that I do have at present can add value to the compliance role. So think about it, get creative, and you will be able to soon tell that, you know what, actually, I'm primed to make an impact and to add value in a compliance role. So those were the 5 steps that I wanted to share with you in terms of making sure that you can get a jump start in a career in compliance. It might seem simple and like it's too simple because it seems so complicated. I promise you, if you just follow those 5 steps and stay consistent, it actually really is that simple. But you have to put the work in order for you to get the result that you want to. You have to learn and make sure that you're upskilling and gaining the skills that you need to gain. You know, you have to invest time and energy in building your network consistently. You have to do the research. You know, all of those steps are going to help you. You have to align your skills and you have to close the skills gap where necessary. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but I promise you, it's worth following through on my advice. I hope you wrote those steps down. If you didn't, you're in luck. This is a video. You can always rewind, and take down notes and make sure that you're getting that and then get to work. There is no magic wand. Nobody is coming to magically lift you and drop you in a compliance role unless, I don't know, some, magical tooth fairy is coming to your rescue. But in the real world, these are the steps that you need to take if you are going to have a career in compliance. So, as promised, the next thing I am going to take you through is the top 10 skills that you need to make sure that you are focusing on obtaining and getting practical knowledge, experience, and sharpening your tools around to make sure that you are a highly effective and competent compliance professional. But before I jump into that, I just want to tell you about something that I am super excited about, and that is the compliance templates that Casey Compliance has developed and that are available to you. If you are a compliance officer or aspiring compliance officer and you want to learn how to create a policy, you want to do a regulatory impact assessment, you want to track your trading, whatever it is, we have 10 amazing templates that you can access at our online store that will help you do all of those things. All you need to do is get your template and it gives you the structure, it guides you as to what you need to be putting in there and get creating your documents that are aligned with best practice. I'm telling you, you want to get this collection of 10 compliance templates. It's created by me personally. I love them. I've done them and I use them in all my businesses with all my clients in terms of whatever it is that I'm dealing with them. And you're going to love them. The link to the store is in the description of this video. So be sure to visit the online store and get your 10 amazing compliance templates. Okay, ad break over. I'm going to move on and jump straight into the 10 skills that you need to be an effective, competent, and highly skilled compliance officer. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Awesome. So there are a number of skills, more than 10, and I'm probably going to do another video where I talk to you about the soft skills. In this section, I'm talking about the technical skills that you need to be able to master and understand clearly to be a great compliance officer. Yes, I will definitely do another video about the soft skills, often underestimated, but those are the icing on the cake. The thing that makes it all worthwhile are the soft skills that just round everything up. So definitely going to do another video about the soft skills. But until then, let's talk about these top 10 skills that you need to have in order to be an amazing and competent compliance officer. Okay? Number one, regulatory interpretation. Now, this is the tricky one that people often think, oh, I definitely need a law degree to have to do this. And I'm here to tell you that yes, you might need assistance if you don't have a legal background, but the great news is that most organizations will have legal counsel on board who will be able to to assist you in the interpretation piece, or regulators issue documents with guidance notes to help you with the interpretation piece if you feel that you are not quite yet sharpened in that area. So there is a way to get around it if that's not necessarily your area of strength, but definitely regulatory interpretation, very important. It's that ability to read the laws and say, okay, what does this actually require us to do as an organization, right? And then being able to communicate that in simpler terms to your business, that these are the 3 things, the 10 things, the 50,000 things that we need to do as an organization to bring us into compliance. So that's the act of regulatory interpretation. Rule application is number 2. And this is so key and an often underestimated skill for compliance officers. It's about the ability to lift that interpretation that you've just done, if that's within your skill set or that your legal counsel has assisted you with, and say, now, how do I put this interpretation of the rules, this requirement, into the context of my business, into our operating model, with the people that we have and the processes that we have? How can we bring this requirement to life to make it work and sing within our organization? Because how you apply it in organization 1 and how you apply it in organization 2 might be very different. And remember, a lot of regulators have moved to an approach where they say it's outcomes-based, it's principles-based. So this is the outcome that they want you to achieve, and the principles that you want to apply. How you achieve that from a business-to-business perspective can be unique to you. So it's a very key skill set to be able to take those rules and regulations and say, within my business and my operating model and the people and skills and processes that we have in place, how do we ensure compliance? So it's about working with your business to apply the rules, and not making it like one size fits all. That used to be the regulatory approach back in the day. And then risk assessment. What a joy this process is. And I often take people through, the skill of analyzing and evaluating risks when I run my workshops. How do you identify the risks? How do you analyze them and evaluate them based on the risk appetite that you have as an organization? So it's end to end that process. What is this risk? What will the impact be to our business if this risk materializes, and what is the likelihood of it materializing? I did a video on compliance risk assessment. So that is that process. You can watch that video as well to really get to grips and get the detail of what I'm talking about when I talk about risk assessment. But an absolutely key skill that you need to have, because risk assessment, you're going to do it on there's the annual one where you look at your whole regulatory universe and say, what are the risks we face as a business from a compliance perspective? But then you also have to risk assess on an ongoing basis. Are they launching a new product? Are they going into a new market? Are they engaging with a new customer base? How do we assess the risks associated with that? So that is a key skill that you have to be able to execute as a compliance officer. Number 4, change management. Regulatory change is something that happens quite frequently in some sectors and not so frequently in others, but it will always happen. So you need to have the ability to guide your business. What is the impact of this new law or the proposed law? What changes are we going to need to make to our operations, our systems, our people? What training is going to be needed in order to bring the business into compliance with this new regulatory requirement that has come about, or a change in an existing law? So you need to be able to manage that change, guide the business, advise them to achieve compliance in that process. And then number 5, regulatory affairs management. As a regulated entity, you are going to engage with your regulators. They have responsibilities to come and do oversight inspections from time to time. They might request information from you. If there's an issue, there might be an investigation around a specific issue. How are you engaging with your regulator? How are you managing those relationships? How are you ensuring that your business is fostering an open and honest relationship with the regulator, and always cooperating to make sure that as a whole, the industry that you're operating in is safe and, operating as it should and stable and all those good things, and the regulator is able to achieve its mandate. So there is an art form to regulatory affairs management. How do you engage? How do you get everybody on board with engaging? The regulator is not the enemy. They're there for a purpose. So there's an art form for it that you will need to then know, like, if they say they're coming in 3 months' time to do an examination of our business, how do I run that examination from start to finish and engage the various stakeholders in the business to make sure we're providing the necessary documentation on time, we're communicating effectively when there are challenges, making ourselves available for interviews, whatever the case may be. That's part of regulatory affairs management, and that would be part of your role as a compliance officer. And then compliance monitoring, that's about what key risk indicators are we putting in place on an ongoing basis to be able to assess and see what is the trend of the risks that we are facing. Are they going up? Are they going down? Are things improving? So you have to have the ability to design those key risk indicators and key performance indicators as well. Is the compliance program working as it should? Are we conducting our training on time? Are the people who are supposed to be trained being trained? Our policies effective? Do people reference them? All those different things in terms of key performance indicators that would show you if the compliance program itself is actually working effectively or not. So monitoring is really about what are we as compliance looking at on a month-to-month, week-to-week, quarter-to-quarter basis to make sure that we have oversight over the different risks and performances that we want to monitor on an ongoing basis. And then compliance testing, that's about, and that's item number 7, that's really about when we need to go into a specific area and check, is this control adequate? Is it working? Are the processes that have been put in place to manage risk effective? That's called going in and doing a compliance test. You are testing the system. You are testing compliance on the ground. Very critical skills. It's a way for us to be able to pick up if there are any key issues that might be arising, things that need to be remediated, things that we thought were remediated but actually are not working, and we need to go back in. It's just a way to pick up potential compliance issues, and also just a way for us to monitor high risk areas that we have identified or medium risk areas that we have identified in our compliance risk assessment process, and just, sense checking and making sure that everything is going well as it should be. So you're going to do that when you do your compliance testing, and then you report on those findings to your stakeholders and be like, in your areas, these are the 3 things that you need to fix. These are of concern. These are sort of within the low risk area, and you engage with the business and help them with the remediation process. Speaking of reporting, compliance reporting is absolutely critical. This is item number 7. your business relies on you to let them know about the compliance health status of the business as a whole. What are the issues? Is there anything that is getting worse instead of getting better? Are we doing well in certain areas in terms of things that we needed to fix? So compliance reporting is how we as a function report to our different internal stakeholders, whether it's the management committee, your exco, your stratco, whatever it is that you call your co's, the different management committees in the organization, all the way up to the board level. If you're reporting to your audit and risk committee, for example, it's about compliance reporting on the overall compliance health status of the business. So all those KPIs and KRIs that you designed in your ongoing monitoring, the compliance test that you were doing, the change management that you were implementing if there's a new law, the fact that a regulator is coming to inspect your business in 3 months' time, all of that would be things that you include in your compliance, the status of compliance training. All of that would be things that you include in your compliance report so that the business and your leadership and your board, all of those have got line of sight and say, okay, this is where we are as a business. How do we need to prioritize things from a remediation perspective and things like that. Number 8, risk mitigation. I've just realized I've been talking really fast and I'm out of breath, but we're almost there. Risk mitigation, right? This is about control environment. When you do your compliance test, for example, you're going in there to seeing are the controls adequate and effective. If you see that there's a control deficiency, more can be done to put in place controls, processes, training, whatever the case may be, to further reduce the exposure to risk. That's about risk mitigation. And how it works is that we as compliance work with the business. We don't dictate the controls that they need to have in place and say, well, this is where we feel that there are shortcomings. We suggest these type of things. What do you think you can be doing to shore up this space? And they have to then agree and adopt the additional controls to further manage that risk, because the risk is owned by the business. They run the processes. They're the ones who have to do everything on the ground. So we can't just come in there and be like, do this and walk away. It's a collaborative kind of effort to make sure that risks are being managed effectively. And so last but not least, compliance training is a critical skill. And I'm going to be slightly controversial on this one, because the problem is compliance training can be so boring sometimes. And when compliance training is delivered in such a way that it's monotone, it's not interesting, people check out of it. People kind of flip through the online course just to get through it and are not really engaging with the material and understanding the material. And even if it's instructor-led, they're not engaging with the instructor. It's not being made real to the things that they have to do on a day-to-day basis. So I implore you that as you upskill and start your journey in compliance, training is one of those things that you are going to have to deliver to people. You're educating them. You're increasing their awareness of not only the laws and regulations. So it's not about just, regurgitating a piece of legislation, but making it real for them. How does this affect your day-to-day life? If it goes wrong in your role, then what is the impact for the rest of the business? How can you take ownership of compliance? So training is about, implementing the compliance culture, increasing awareness, making sure people aren't making mistakes out of ignorance. So please make it interesting, be creative. It doesn't have to be a long, boring monologue by one person and everyone else is sitting there, memorizing their grocery lists. Make it engaging, make it fun, and make sure that the information and the lessons are really being internalized by people. So you're going to have to be a people person. You're going to have to be fun and engaging, or whatever your personality is, but make sure that, this is what I have to do as a compliance officer. I have to train, I have to increase awareness, I have to contribute to the embedding of a culture by, training people about their role and responsibility when it comes to compliance risk management. So do it right, guys. Don't bore people. Don't be a snooze fest. Thank you very much. Okay, so those are the 10 skills that I wanted to share with you. Regulatory interpretation, rule application, risk assessment, change management, regulatory affairs management, compliance monitoring, compliance testing, reporting, risk mitigation, and training. Bam. 10 key technical skills that you need to have as a compliance officer. Wow, that was a lot. But I hope that you guys have absorbed it. Watch this video 1,000 times if you need to, and really just get stuck in absorbing what it is that I need to deliver as a compliance officer. What skills do I need to make sure that I have to be able to do this? So yeah, that was a lot of information. That was a lot for this presentation. Gosh, I don't know if I'm going to do another long one for a while because it's exhausting. I'm tired, but so worthwhile. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope the information was valuable. I hope you were taking notes, but like I said, if you didn't take your notes, you're fine. Come back and watch this video tomorrow and the next day and the next day until you get stuck into it and it really sits deep within and you can get started. Good luck and all the best with starting your career in compliance. It's nice over here. I promise you, come through, join us. I can't wait for you guys to be compliance officers. But until then, keep watching the channel, subscribe. Like I said, more great videos coming up, you know, soft skills and everything else that I mentioned in the course of this video that I will be covering. So I look forward to seeing you here again soon. Bye, guys.